Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Heroes Like You podcast, where we explore the lives of people just like you and I, who've had to overcome challenges in their lives and have gone on to accomplish great things. I'm really excited about today's hero, Kikkan Randall, who is a 5-time Olympian and a gold medalist. In fact, she is the only American to ever win a gold medal in the cross-country skiing event, and she did it with her teammate Jessica Diggins. After the Olympics, however, Kikkan returned home to some devastating news that she talks about in this interview. I've been really looking forward to this conversation for a long time. I know you're going to love it. So without further ado, here is my conversation with gold medalist Kikkan Randall. Well, Kikkan, thank you so much for taking time to come on the show and share your story with us today. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long time, so I appreciate you taking the time to make it happen.
Oh, my pleasure.
Now, I found out that we have a few things in common. So first of all, we're the same age.
Okay.
We have both skied at Soldier Hollow here in Utah, and we both participated in the 2002 Winter Olympics in Salt Lake City. I was a volunteer, and you were a world-class athlete. So, but we do have something in common anyway. Your list of accomplishments are far too long to list, but I just want to mention a few here, and correct me if I miss anything. You have 17 U.S. national titles. This is all cross-country skiing. You're a 5-time Olympian. You were the highest finish by an individual American woman at the World Championships. You won America's first ever cross-country skiing gold medal in 2018. And in addition to that, you're a mother. So these accomplishments are long and inspiring, and for people like me who never even dream of becoming an Olympic athlete, they seem really unattainable, and yet you've done it. I want to know, what does it take to become an Olympic gold medalist? What does it take to become the best in the world? What did life look like for you growing up in preparation for the accomplishments that I just listed?
Well, I wouldn't say we have the process absolutely perfected. It took a long time to get to the point where we were actually competitive for Olympic medals. When I was young growing up, I had an aunt and uncle that were Olympians. So I heard their stories. I got to wear their stuff around. I vividly remember watching the 1988 Winter Olympics and deciding that I wanted to go to the Olympics. I did not pick cross-country skiing as my sport right away. My dad had got me on alpine skis the day after my first birthday, so I actually followed the downhill trajectory for a while, dreamed about being an Olympian in alpine skiing up through middle school. Then as I got into high school, I was starting to get into running a little bit more seriously, and all my running friends were going to join the cross-country ski team in the winter. And so I kind of realized I had to make a choice whether to continue to pursue alpine or whether to do cross country. And I was having so much fun with the people in cross country that I kind of started to get pulled that way. And then after my sophomore year, I needed a new training group for the summer. And I got introduced to an Olympic cross country coach. And he had kind of a new vision for cross country skiing. And I started to get intrigued by the fact that no American woman had ever won an Olympic medal in cross country skiing. And I loved how cross-country skiing was actually combining all the things I loved about the sports I'd played growing up. I still got to go fast downhill. I still got the peer effort of running, and I got the kind of the team feel like I did in soccer. So I kind of switched my main goals and focused to cross-country at that point. And the 2002 Olympics were just 3 years away. And it was a bit ambitious to think about that Olympic team so young, but I just had been so inspired by the Olympics growing up that I set my mind on making that team. And because they'd introduced the shorter event called the sprint, I ended up qualifying for that team in Salt Lake and got to live my dream of competing at the Olympics.
Wow. And were you training up in Alaska? Is that where all this happened?
Yes, I was actually born in Salt Lake City. My mom was attending law school at the time at University of Utah, but we moved to Alaska when I was 3.
Okay.
So my whole memorable life has been in Alaska.
So you said you remember watching the Olympics and your family members competing in the Olympics at a young age. When you were that young, talking about 5 or 6 years old, was it in your mind that you would compete in the Olympics someday, or did that come later?
No, early on, I was pretty sure I was going to compete in the Olympics. I think having the family members do it probably just made it seem that much more possible. And I just remember growing up, I mean, every time the Olympics was on TV, I was just totally fascinated with it. I had all my heroes up on my bedroom wall. I had all the Wheaties boxes after the Atlanta games up on my wall. I had Tommy Moe, who was an Alaskan who had won a gold medal in 1994. He had signed a poster for me that was on my wall. So to me, it always felt possible. It wasn't a matter of if I was going to go to the Olympics. It was just a matter of when and what sport.
Huh. So it never crossed your mind that you wouldn't be in the Olympics someday?
Right. I think as I got into high school and when I started to set my sights on running, I realized how competitive that sport was going to be and how challenging it would be to make the Olympics in that sport. But I still wasn't deterred. I still felt like, well, if I just commit to it and work hard enough, it's possible. And then when I kind of switched the focus to cross country skiing, then again, it just seemed possible. It was just going to be a matter of time.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Did you make this ambition known to people? And were there naysayers, people that said, oh, the Olympics, there's no way. You're just Kikkan Randall. There's no way you can do that. Did you have any naysayers bringing you down?
I don't remember any naysayers, outright. I think, growing up, every time I had a project in school, I found a way to integrate the Olympics in. I mean, I did a geometry project in ninth grade, I think, and I made the Olympic rings out of tangents and all sorts of things. And so, the theme was always there. And, I think at 16, when I kind of made it clear that I was aiming at the 2002 Olympics, I think my coaches were kind of cautiously optimistic. I think they didn't want to deter me from the possibility, but they also tried to prepare me for the fact that cross country skiing was a sport that took many years to reach the highest level,
Yeah.
and that perhaps going to the Olympics at 19 was going to be ambitious. But again, no one fully deterred me. Though probably the biggest hurdle I had was after making that first Olympic team in 2002, when I was then kind of inspired to take my dream bigger and go for an Olympic medal. My grandfather, who had been very supportive of me, making the Olympics, was kind of like, all right, now you've checked that off your list. It's time to go to school and get a degree and get a professional career. And when I said, no, I think I want to commit my life to trying to win this elusive medal, he didn't see it. He didn't think that was possible. And it's because there really was no path. There was no history to show it that it was. But I just kind of kept consistently saying, I think it's just going to take time. I'd sat down with my coaches after that 2002 Olympic game, and we mapped out a plan of all the steps I was going to need to reach in order to make myself a contender. And I think over a few years, my grandfather was a little bit stubborn, but I eventually kind of showed him that I was on track. And I'm glad I didn't let him talk me out of it, because even though it took some patience, it was totally worth it.
Yeah, so it was always top of mind for you. There was nothing that was going to deter you necessarily from reaching that goal.
Yeah.
So you were 19 in 2002, is that right?
Yes.
When you went to your first Olympics. Now, you weren't an immediate success. You didn't finish on the podium, those first couple of tries, right?
Correct. No.
When you were not placing at the top early in your career, did that discourage you at all, or did that just motivate you to learn from that experience and chase that elusive medal, like you said?
I think I was lucky that I was at that first Olympics kind of so young, and I knew I was there mostly to get experience. By that point, I had realized it was going to be a multi-year process to work up. And so finishing 44th place, well off the lead in Salt Lake, I wasn't too deterred. It's hard not to get wrapped up in the hype of the Olympics. And, I was watching Sarah Hughes win the Olympic medal in figure skating at 16 years old. And there's a small part of you that wants to be competitive right away. But I just knew it was going to take time. And so my next Olympics in 2006, I wanted to improve by halfway. So I wanted to finish in the top 20, and I ended up surprising myself and finishing in the top 10. So that kind of showed me I was on track. Going into the Vancouver games in 2010, it was a little bit tough because I had become competitive in the freestyle sprint event, but that wasn't contested at the 2010 Olympics. It was a classic sprint.
And what's the difference there for those who aren't aware, like myself? What's the difference?
Yeah. So in classic skiing, that's what you would traditionally think of as cross country.
Okay.
That's where your skis are parallel. You see the person kind of nice and, lengthened out and striding, and you actually have to keep your skis parallel. So it's much more of a technical technique, use your upper body a lot. And then we have the skate skiing, which is a lot more, that's more lateral movement like you would do as a rollerblader or as a hockey skater. And you're a bit more powerful for your legs. And that is the event that I'm stronger in. And so, because we have the two techniques and because we have multiple distances contested at the Olympics, what they do, to be fair, is they kind of flip flop techniques and distances every Olympics.
Okay.
So the sprint event, one year, one Olympics will be in freestyle, and then 4 years later it'll be classic,
Oh,
and then
interesting.
another 4 years after that it will be back to freestyle. And so it's kind of like, if you were really good at the butterfly, but they only did it every other Olympics.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a little bit frustrating when you're kind of a specifically good at something
Right.
that you have to wait every 8 years for an opportunity instead of every 4.
Right. Well, let's talk about 2018. This was a team event. Is that right?
Correct.
And you won the first ever cross-country skiing gold medal by an American. Is that right?
Correct, because we'd had Bill Koch had won a silver medal in the men's individual
Okay.
15K back, or 30K back in 1976.
Okay.
So that was our one and only Olympic medal. It was the silver. We had no women's medals and we had no gold medals. So when we won the gold in the team sprint in Pyeong Chang, it was exciting to have that first ever women's medal and for it to be gold for the entire team.
And that was you and Jessie Diggins. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so take us through that. When you went in, was it your goal to get the gold medal or just to place, or what was your goal going into that Olympics and your expectation?
So that what really motivated me to continue and go for one more Olympics, which was 2018. After 2014, I had missed my opportunity to get an individual gold medal in the freestyle sprint. And so I was excited for the fact that we would get a chance at the 2-person team event in the skating technique in 2018. And I had been kind of working on cultivating this team all the way through my career because I loved having a team environment and I loved being able to compete in those relays. And what I didn't anticipate coming into the 2018 Olympics is that by helping my teammates get faster, they might actually get so fast that I would be out of a job. So coming into those 2018 Olympics, what was so exciting for our team is that we had several of the girls that were capable of filling the 2 spots for that team sprint. So it was a really tough decision for the coaches to pick which 2 of us would be on that team. And it wasn't until about 36 hours before the race that they finally made that decision.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah. So we were all on pins and needles. And when I got the word that I would be on the team, I was super excited because I knew it would be my last Olympic race, my last chance to be on a team. And then when Jessie and I had teamed up 5 years earlier at the World Championships, we had won a gold medal. So we knew we could be competitive, but we were also up against some of the strongest skiers that have ever been in the sport.
Yeah.
I mean, the teams from Norway and Sweden were as strong as they could possibly get. And everybody was talking about Norway versus Sweden.
Right.
And so we kind of got to come in as the underdogs, we knew a medal was a possibility if we put together the right day. And the coolest part is we didn't compete until the evening. And the whole day, Jessie and I spent time together. We spent time together with our entire team, but we never talked about the medals. We just talked about going out, executing our strategy, being brave, not being intimidated by these other teams, just going out and getting in the mix. And if we did that, we would walk away satisfied no matter what.
So was it your expectation to medal, or did you just want to do your best and then live with that?
I guess I had learned after my experience in 2014, where I had come in with so much focus on winning that medal, and then ultimately didn't do it, that I knew at this point it was more about leaving that race with no regrets, knowing that I skied as hard as I possibly could, left it all in the snow. I knew Jessie would do the same. And so I think for us, we just wanted to go out and again, ski brave and ski strong. And we knew a medal was a good possibility for sure. But these team sprints can be crazy. There's high speed exchanges, there's crashes sometimes. So it takes a lot, to put together a medal winning race.
Yeah.
And so we just kind of stayed focused on the jobs we had to do.
That's awesome. So it was more just focused on what you could do and executing, having fun perhaps, and coming away with the best result that you possibly could, it sounds like.
Exactly. Yeah. We put on our relay socks. We had our face paint on. When the camera panned across before the start, we made sure we had the biggest smiles on our faces.
Well, it's one of the most exciting finishes in any sport I have ever seen. I just recently rewatched it. And if you haven't seen it, you can find it on YouTube. Just watch the broadcast of that gold medal winning run. It is so exciting, that finish. And then, of course, like you said, you and your teammate holding the American flag and with your big smiles and face paint. What was the emotion when you were standing on that podium and you received that gold medal that how long it had been? It had been 20 years that you'd been going for that.
Yeah. So the funny part is when you dream about winning the medal, it's all about the process up to the point of the race. So you don't actually think about what to do if you do win the medal. So Jesse and I were in brand new territory. We were just trying to soak it all in, and we actually got our medals awarded the following night after the race. And so as we're heading backstage, Jesse elbows me and goes, "Kikkan, let's do our team dance on the podium." And she's for sure the better dancer of the two. So I all of a sudden got super nervous about getting the dance moves right. So when they were giving us instructions about going out on stage, I wasn't fully listening because I was kind of rehearsing the dance moves in my head. And so we went out on stage and we were standing behind the podium, and we were supposed to wait for our country to be called in 3 languages. And I heard it called in English and I heard it called in French, and I started marching up there, and Jesse had to grab my coat and say, "Not yet." So once they said it in Korean, then we were able to go up on the podium. We did our dance. I didn't mess it up too much. And then, when I leaned over for them to put the medal around my neck, I was totally caught off guard by how heavy it was.
Oh.
And I actually had to catch my balance and not fall off the front of the podium because
Wow.
I was not expecting it to be so heavy. And it was awarded to us by the chairman of the U.S. ski team at the time. So it was really special for us to be getting this historic gold medal, being awarded by, a friendly face. And all of our teammates were in the crowd. My family was in the crowd. My parents had a big Kikkan head in the crowd so I could see right where they were. And it was it was more incredible than I had imagined to watch that flag be raised, to hear the national anthem, and to just soak in that moment that I had been dreaming about for 20 years.
What an amazing experience. I want to ask you this, going back to the race real quick. Do you believe, for you, is it harder physically or mentally to get through a race or training for that matter?
The reason we train so much is so that you ingrain that feeling of discomfort and you practice the strategies of how you kind of coax yourself through pushing that limit. And so in some ways, the training can almost be more grueling because you're testing your limits, you're pushing yourself through, you're training a lot, so your body's under a ton of load. By the time you get to the race, you have done all the work. You've tapered, you're prepared. At that point, it's really just about going through the motions. So, mentally you have the added, you have the nerves because this is your chance. But I love the process. I love how much preparation we get to do so that by the time you get to the race, you don't really need to create any special magic. You just do what you've been trained to do. And I found when I can just realize the opportunity I have ahead of me, be grateful for the kind of the experience, to be soaking it all in, you just really get into that flow state where you're supremely focused. I almost find the races more easy sometimes.
Interesting. Kikkan, there's probably a lot of people out there who envy you, who have no hope or aspiration of ever winning a gold medal or making it to the Olympics, and who may look at your life and think, wow, that's an ideal life. I wish I could be like that. And yet you've had some setbacks in your life as well. I know in 2008, you had some blood clots in your legs that set you back for a time, but probably the most impactful was in 2018, about 3 months after you won the gold medal, you were diagnosed with breast cancer. Can you contrast the feelings and emotions that you had at the time of your diagnosis with those that you had when you won the gold medal?
Well, I think they're probably the two most opposite experiences you can have in the course of 3 months. Because when you win a gold medal, and for me, I was finishing my career, you almost have this feeling of an invincibility.
Yeah.
You feel so incredibly physically strong. You get the endorphins from these amazing performances. And when I actually discovered that something didn't feel right, it was Mother's Day.
Oh.
And I had just spent this amazing day with my husband and my son. And I went from this just supreme feeling of happiness and contentment to all of a sudden having to confront my mortality, to having to realize I wasn't invincible,
Yeah.
realizing this was something that I wasn't going to be able to have much control over. This was, I couldn't just will myself out of this situation or outwork it. Um, so there's a lot of emotions that process. I mean, it's disbelief, it's frustration, it's fear, of course, of what does this mean? And yet, as I processed all that in my head, it was amazing how quickly my athlete frame of mind took over. And I realized that this wasn't so unlike a big, race when you're super nervous and you realize, you aren't going to be able to control your competitors or the weather,
Mm.
and you just got to execute the process. So I quickly realized I just was going to have to make a plan, build a team, and get through this new challenge one step at a time. And I've been really, as I've gone through this journey over the last year, I've just been, every time I feel those thoughts kind of develop in my head, I just kind of recognize it, I reframe them, and I get back to focusing on the things I can control and staying positive. Yeah, it's tested me more than I've ever been tested as an athlete, but I'm really grateful for all those opportunities that I had as an athlete where things didn't go perfectly and I had to kind of work my way out of tough situations.
Mm. You said you put together a plan and built a team to help you get through it. Who's that team?
So it's a big team. It started with the people that are closest to me. My husband was the first person I called, my parents, my siblings, my family, my teammates, my friends, because I knew that they were going to be the ones that were going to be there, to help keep me staying positive, um, keep me focused on the process. But then building a medical team
Mm.
that could really appreciate who I was as a person, where I was coming from. I'm not your average cancer patient. Um, and also appreciating what I want to get back to. So I was a little bit deliberate in who I picked as my surgeon, as my oncologist, as my radiation oncologist. And it's not natural necessarily for those different providers to work together, but I tried to kind of create a team as much as I could, and thankfully they played along and they were working together to make a treatment plan that really had the same goals and the same trajectory altogether. And so, I was really curious about how active I was going to be able to stay during my treatment,
Right.
because I knew staying active was going to be key to my body processing the treatment and mentally, huge. And so thankfully my doctors were really supportive of that. And, I even tested the waters of trying to talk my oncologist into letting me, walk on a treadmill or ride a spin bike while I was getting my chemo infusions. Um,
How
she
did
was
that
actually
go?
she was supportive of the idea. It was the nurses that were a little bit nervous
Hmm.
because they felt if I was going to get, if I was getting flushed in the face, was that because of the exertion or was that because of a reaction?
Mm.
So ultimately, we settled on I would ride my bike to my sessions, and that was my way to stay active. And then I was able to do as much training as I felt like doing outside of that. So
Mm.
I think it was really important to have providers that, again, were kind of willing to work with me in this situation to, see me as a unique patient, not just your average. And then I ended up having this even bigger team of support. I announced my diagnosis publicly on my social media accounts the day I started chemo, and it was amazing how quickly the support started pouring in, literally seconds after I made
Wow.
the announcements, and kind of having that team of support to, give me tips, to remind me I was strong, to kind of go on this journey with me. For every little bit I've put out there, I've gained it back 100-fold, and being able to make this treatment process about more than just myself gutting through some tough moments, making it collaborative and sharing the experience has really helped me get through it.
Wow. You mentioned a couple times staying positive. What's the importance of staying positive for you? And how do you do it when you're nauseous, you want to throw up, you don't want to move? How do you stay positive, and why is it so important?
I really think staying positive is probably the biggest key to all of this. I think our bodies actually respond to a positive mindset. I think you function better. And when you're going through something tough, there is a tendency to want to go the opposite way, to get a little bit negative. I mean, you're feeling physically sick.
Yeah.
There's a lot of what ifs and scary things. But I found that if I let my mind wander to those negative areas, that wasn't getting me anywhere. That was making the symptoms almost feel worse. And so I would find that those thoughts would come, and I could recognize it. It's just a natural part of going through something like this. But then I would catch it and say, okay, this is uncomfortable right now, but it's only temporary.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, what can I do to distract myself in this moment? Maybe it is getting up off the couch and getting out and being active. It's going out and spending time with people that are really important to me, because that in and of itself, takes my attention to the things that are most important. And that's my motivation for getting through this. And, there were a lot of things to be optimistic about. We caught the cancer in an early stage. The treatment was being effective. We were hoping to expand our family. And while that's being delayed right now, it's still possible. And so every time I found myself being negative, I tried to turn it around. And I even resorted to wearing colorful shoes into my doctor's appointments. It's just that little reminder where I could look down and stay hopeful. And we ended up kind of going with this idea, and we've now come out with some colorful socks that say it's going to be okay.
Oh,
on
so
there.
good.
We're making these together with Darn Tough, and we have some brightly colored headbands and a neck gaiter. And so we've been putting it out there, realizing that because this worked for me, this is another way to help other people stay positive as they're going through something challenging, whether that be a medical condition or whether that be, going after something challenging like an Olympic gold medal. And it's been really cool, again, to to put this thing out there to help people get through challenging things. And the socks have certainly helped me at points, but to also kind of share in this experience and interact and to stay focused on the positive.
Oh, I love that. That is so good. I want to ask this, though. There are people who don't have social media followers, that haven't enjoyed a lot of success, that are going through difficult times. What can you say to those people, besides, wearing brightly colored socks, to get through their tough times, even if they don't have the support like you've had and they haven't had previous success like you've had? How can they get through to win at the races in their own life?
Yeah, well, I think it comes down to just, taking the challenge you're facing and breaking it down into pieces small enough that you can literally tackle something in that hour, in that day. And it's amazing how, as you tackle these small steps, you can literally check it off. And so, when I was going through chemo, my mom was putting X's on the calendar every day that I was getting through. And it was pretty amazing that seemingly, time passed, and all of a sudden I could look back and I could see all those X's and I could go, wow, look at the progress I've made. And little things like that, I think, that are showing you where you're going, and giving you that feeling of accomplishment that you're working through this one piece at a time. I think that can be really valuable. Taking maybe your treatment process and breaking it down into small segments. And so you're like, okay, I've just got to get through this part. And then once I do, I can get to the next part. There's also amazing ways to interact with, similar people in your situation. I've been able to reach out to people online, through various forums. There's the Young Survivors Coalition for those that are young and facing this. There's amazing breast cancer resources through the Susan G. Komen Foundation. Just tons of resources. And I think being able to interact with other people that are going through the same thing can be really helpful. So even if you don't have the connections right where you live, there are options to get support. And I think it's also about being open to talking with people about it, interacting. I think the human tendency when we are going through some stuff is almost to feel like, okay, I've got to deal with this myself. And there are a lot of people out there that want to help. And so you just have to be open to it.
Well, that is good. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. I think you're right. I think there is, no matter what you're going through, there's probably a community out there that is going through the same thing that's willing to help if we're just willing to open up. Well, that's good. I don't want to take too much of your time. I know you're busy. You're very gracious to spend time with us. I do want to know, though, where are you at in the in the treatment process and the recovery process, and what does the future look like for Kikkan Randall? It sounds like we won't see you at another Olympic Games, but what does the future look like for you?
Yeah, well, I'm grateful to be through probably the hardest parts of my treatment. It's been about a year since it's actually a year ago today that I got the diagnosis.
Oh, wow.
So I still have a couple more rounds of this targeted therapy that I'll finish with in July. And then I'm on some hormone therapy for the next 5 years, but that's just taking a shot once a month and a pill daily. So that's all pretty manageable. I'll be going in July for my first 6 months checkup and then getting, scans every 6 months just to keep an eye on things. But I've been able to get back to life as normal, and that's great. So I've been traveling around. I've been doing a lot of motivational speaking lately, getting to share both what I learned through my Olympic journey and now how I've applied that to getting through my latest challenge. And I really enjoy doing that. I will be at the next Olympic Games, not as a competitor, but I will be there as an IOC representative.
Oh, nice.
Because I now sit on the IOC Athlete Commission. And so I'm excited to go to my first Summer Games next year in Tokyo. And then I'll be at the 22 Winter Olympics in Beijing there, ready to kind of support the athletes that'll be competing. So lots to stay busy with. I also have a 3-year-old, and I'm really just enjoying being mom and, appreciating every moment I have, because when you go through something like this, you realize not to take those moments for granted.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. I've really enjoyed talking with you. You've given us a lot of things to think about, and appreciate you sharing your experiences and your story, and especially what it's taken to get through this difficult time in your life. We wish you the very, very best in your recovery, and hope to see you someday in a future Olympics, if not as a participant, maybe on the TV screen in another role. So thank you so much.
Yeah, sounds good. My hair's growing out, and I hope to be able to put the pink back in soon. So
good.
It'll be a little easier to pick out of the crowd.
Yeah, we'll look for it. Well, thanks again. We really appreciate it, Kikkan.
All right, yeah, have a great day.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Boy, talk about an inspiring story. I love that she always had it in her mind that she was going to be an Olympic athlete, and nothing was going to stop her from doing that. Even her grandfather, who I'm sure she adored and she respected and revered, wasn't going to get in her way of reaching that dream that she had for herself. I think we can apply that to whatever circumstance we're in right now. What do we want to be? What do we want to become? Where do we want to go? What do we want to do? And then make goals and steps to get there. The other thing she said that I really like is the importance of having a positive attitude. Now, when you have cancer, I can only imagine there's not a lot to be positive about. But Kikkan talked about the importance of finding things to be grateful for, finding the positive every day, so that there is something to smile about. There's a quote that I read, and I don't know who said it originally, but it says, "A positive attitude gives you power over your circumstances instead of your circumstances having power over you." And I think you can see that in Kikkan's life, how she's staying positive in a not so positive situation. Well, I hope this has inspired you to go out and achieve whatever it is you want to achieve and to overcome whatever challenges are facing you right now. A big thanks to Kikkan Randall for joining us today and sharing her story, and a big thanks to you, the listener. I really appreciate it. My name is Joe Belliston. It's a great day to be alive. We'll see you next time, and God bless.